parasites, if the parasites, if you know who the parasites are, the parasites and corporations really care about this whole environmental thing. They call it climate change, and people are gonna die because of climate change, and there's gonna be horrendous, death and destruction and world-ending stuff because of climate change. All these lies that they have, all these things that they say. At first there was going to be the ice age, the global cooling, then it was global warming, and then it was back to cooling again, then it was back to global warming, and all of a sudden they couldn't own anything because people kept second guessing and say, well, you said this in the 70s, why are you saying this now in the 90s or the 2000s? Why are you doing this? And that was the last straw, and they're like, well, we're just going to call it climate change, because anyway, anything the climate does, we'll own it, and then we can dictate and make anybody do whatever we want for anything with anything. So it got me thinking. It's like, well, these parasites are so conscious about the environment and that kind of stuff. It's like, well, the first question I have is, well, these turbines, these wind turbines, these windmills, if anyone spends 5 minutes looking into this, and how horrible these are for the environment, let alone you need a coal-powered plant to get them to run. They can't run by themselves.
Now, you used to work for the federal government.
I did, yeah, for 7 years.
Doing what?
I was policy advisor for a Liberal Party senator. The area that I was working in was renewable energy. And basically, it was my job to uncover a lot of the stuff that was going on with the Renewable Energy Act, which was put in 2002 under the Howard government. So that was the Liberal Party put the act in place, and I was looking at the mess that it had created. And what a lot of people don't understand is that the Renewable Energy Act creates a subsidy environment where if you build wind turbines, you're paid between $600,000 and $900,000 per turbine per year as a subsidy alone.
Well, if it's on your property.
No. So what happens is the wind company comes in and they pay a lease to the farmer to build the wind turbines, and that in effect makes sure that the farmer is still liable for the turbine.
Okay.
And they pay a lease of $12,000 a year, usually, and the company gets paid between $600,000 and $900,000 per turbine per year.
So they pay $12,000 to the farmer, but they get $600,000.
Exactly.
Per turbine.
Yeah.
Which is a big incentive to put in turbines.
Yeah, and the landowner takes the liability for the turbine.
So he gets $12,000 a year, but if anything happens to it, he's got to fix it, or she's got to fix it.
Yeah, when they catch on fire.
Yeah.
They're responsible for their neighbours' properties going up in smoke. That kind of thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And effectively that money, the subsidy that's getting paid to the wind farms, is reaming $40 billion a year out of the Australian economy. And it's paid by everyone, every pensioner, householder, schools, hospitals, everyone. It's not just out of your tax, it comes out of your power bill.
Is this why power bills are going up?
Yeah. That's why
So our power bills are going up to pay for wind turbines that don't work.
Exactly.
And why don't they work?
So they don't work because, for a start, they draw power off the grid, so they have to have coal-fired power in order to turn. They're not windmills, they're turbines. And essentially...
Sorry, what do you mean? The power to turn. So when we see them turning, that's not the wind, that's the power generator turning.
Essentially, they have to draw power off the grid, so they have to draw coal-fired power off the grid in order to turn. And what happens when the wind picks up, they do actually start to create electricity of their own, but that electricity is so intermittent and unreliable, when it gets back to the grid, it has to be balanced on the grid, which you can't do. And like with your coal-fired power station, you can't ramp your coal-fired power stations up and down. So the coal-fired power station stays at the same level because it takes 24 to 48 hours for them to get up to heat anyway, and they just let off steam as the wind comes onto the grid. So
they can't run by themselves. So that's neither here nor there. The coal-fired plant, I have no problem with that. clean coal technology being used for what it's supposed to be used for, a energy source. But these wind turbines, once they had their 20 years and they're done, or 15 years or 25 years, and they're done, that's it, their life's done. That's life expectancy. You can't do anything with them. You can't recycle them. You can't break them down, or you can't reuse them. They need to create landfills to put these old windmills, wind turbines in, and just bury them in the ground. That sounds sustainable. That sounds great to me. Because about 50 years down the road, we're going to have so much land we're using just for burying of wind turbines. That sounds like a great idea. It's nothing to do with our environment, period. So that got me thinking. I was like, well, this plastic that we're using all the time. We're using plastic bottles for everything, for ketchup, for peanut butter, for sodas, that kind of stuff. Yes, there are aluminum cans for sodas, but a majority of it nowadays is plastic. Your 20 ounce, your 16 ounce bottles, it's plastic. And I was like, well, I thought plastic was the problem because California wanted to get rid of plastic straws. But if plastic's not the problem, why are you getting rid of plastic straws? Because it seems like plastic's not the problem because everywhere you go, you use stuff in plastic. So if we just start at the bare bones, we'll just go with soda and beer. Why? I remember back, jeepers, this is probably 20 years ago. I was drinking, and since now I don't drink anymore, but I would go to the liquor store, and 20 years ago, 25 years ago, I'd go to the liquor store, and you could get returnable bottles, cases of returnable bottles. It was a large case, and it had 24 beers in there, no matter what brand it was. Brown case, usually sometimes they had some print on them for a tagging of, the kind of product it was, whether it was Miller or what, Budweiser, whatever, Coors. You could get that. You would get these returnable bottles, you'd buy them, and bring them home. Once you're done, once you're done with the bottle, you just empty it, rinse for a second, and you put it back in the case. And then once the case was full of empties, you bring that back to the liquor store. You got a little kickback from it because you're returning your bottles to reuse, and you'd get another case. And this goes on and on and on and on. So then those cases would go to whatever manufacturing place it is, or whatever company, or whatever the beer is that you purchased, or even sodas. You did this for sodas too back in the day. And they would clean them and sterilize them and refill them and then sell them back to the stores. Hence, they could sell them to you, the consumers. What was wrong with that? Nothing was wrong with that. Nothing was wrong with that. And today, if you ask or have any younger generation say, well, explain what this is. Why is this bottle so much heavier, so much more durable, it has so much more heft to it? Why is this different than this other bottle? And then why is this case, this box, why is it so sturdy, and why is it different than ones that you get in the store when you buy a case of beer or soda? They had no idea. They would say, I don't know, maybe something from the old days, and that's just what they did. They have no idea. But these younger people, a lot of them are health and environment conscious. Make sure the environment's healthy and make sure it's good to go. And they're going to do everything else that's great for the environment, at least that they think is, and that they're told to do. They'll try to get in line and follow orders, but they have no idea. Really, what they're doing is way worse than these returnable bottles. So they were made to last. The bottles were to be used over and over again, and the packaging was stronger, like I said. So soft drink bottles were 100% refillable in 1947. According to a grassroots recycling network, and then by 2000, less than 1% of soft drinks were bottled in refillable containers. So 47 soft drink bottles were 100% refillable. 47, 1947. And then by the year 2000, less than 1% of all soft drinks were bottled in refillable containers. And this is an environmentally conscious society we're living in, supposedly they tell us. And that says everything that goes against that period. So 1960, there were 4,519 bottle plants operating in the U.S., creating a decentralized system where beverages were bottled relatively locally, cutting the cost of shipping, allowing a returnable bottle system. So because there's so much out there, there's so many of these, these factories, these bottling companies, this kind of stuff, they're more local. There was less money it took to ship, less, travel, so it was a lot easier to do that. So in the case of soft drinks, Pepsi, Coca-Cola bought up many of the independent bottling companies and consolidated their bottling plants, creating many of the independent bottling companies and further distancing to be able to ship to more uniform batch of products. So it further distanced the places away so they could no longer really feel like these reusable things were worth anything to them because it costs them more money now. So because it costs them more in travel, shipping, that kind of stuff, well, they don't want to do that. So it saves them more money. Well, then you just have to go talk to those in D.C., Washington District of Criminals, and say, hey, we want you to help pass this legislation, and then we'll give you these kickbacks, we'll give you this money, we'll give you this whatever, and make sure that you don't allow this to happen or allow this to happen and dictate it in our favor. And that's what happens. Sort of same sort of thing here. So this went on, and so the longer the shipping distances diminished, the benefit of refillable bottles didn't matter, like I'd said. So by 1997, there were only 342 bottling plants in the U.S. So 1960, there were 4,519. So it was more spread out. And by 1997, there was only 342 bottling plants in the U.S. That's it. That's soda. And nowadays, with all these mom and pop, breweries and things on the beer aspect of it popping up, there's so much more availability, and they can do that so much easier because they're so much more spread out like they used to be, because they're bottling these beers. And we're not talking the huge companies. We're talking all these off-brand beers and all these one-offs here and there, and all these little things that pop up here and there. They could do that, and they could do that and make these in refillable bottles. Yes, there's going to be some involvement of trying to retrain or re-help the people and the younger generations understand why this is a benefit, and they can't just throw it away all the time, and it will take a little bit of hiccup. It'll take a little bit of work, and there'll be some trial and error, but in the end, it's going to be so much more worth it, and people grasp it so much more than just complaining and not doing anything about it. They just got to run to the social media and complain a little bit, and then they said their part, and they're health or environment conscious. Period. Campaigns by steel manufacturers producing steel cans and glass manufacturers promoted production of the throwaway containers in the 1960s. The throwaway containers, in turn, seemed to make the returnable bottles less attractive to consumers, promoting more reliance on bottles and cans tossed as soon as they're drained, initiating a refund for returned non-refillable bottles. Many states also seem to make refilling old bottles even less attractive. is when we get money to recycle other than reusing. So that had something to do with it too, because you got different states that offer so much. Return this bottle, get 5 cents, get 10 cents, whatever it is. So when they started doing that, that started taking away from the refillable bottle aspect of it also. The thing that's strange is, unlike soda, beer has become much more of a locally produced phenomenon, which that's what I talked about. So there's so much more, and let's see if I got some numbers here. We got, there were 43 beer firms operating in the U.S. in 1983, but as of the middle of 2000, there were 1,400. So as of 2017, there were 6,266 craft beer breweries. That's just, I mean, on top of that, then there's like 3,812 microbreweries. We got 2,252 brew pubs. I mean, it's expanded so much more that could be their angle, and I think that's what they should turn to and do, is go to refillable bottles. They have no reason not to, and if they want to get people involved in this environment, this being environment conscious and saving the environment, whatever they want to put out there for dribble, they should do that. And these smaller companies should do that, and it would be a little niche. And maybe they get them more and more, progress, more and more exposure, and they could become something big because of it, let alone really taking back this environment, kind of gun-ho they're getting on us and having us do whatever they want us to do, not what matters, not what's really, truly helpful. So Coca-Cola announced by 2030 they would attempt to sell 25% of their beverages returnable and reusable glass bottles, focusing much of their efforts on markets in Africa, Latin America, and the southwestern United States. So at least another soda company, Coca-Cola, is attempting to do something. We'll see how that goes, but I don't know. Also, consumers will find the new reusable and returnable bottles, this is the Coca-Cola, used for beverages, Coca-Cola, Sprite, no sugar, Fanta, Schweppes, cream soda, and soda water, to be part of this reusable bottle thing. They're trying to get pushed out there. So they're announcing by 2030. They're hoping to have this in and working and established. Well, I say we'll see. Is it just something for some sort of marketing, some exposure, or is it this really a deal? But anyways, I just want to get this out there and get people thinking. It's like, really? If you're that worried about the environment, you got these windmills and you got this disposable society, and everything, almost everything nowadays is throwaway. It's a throwaway society, period. But anyways, I just thought of this. I just thought of whether this does something or not. I just want to get this out there. But if you like this, like, subscribe. As always, stay vigilant for yourself, family, the health,